Should we make a start? Welcome everybody. Good morning to you all, wherever you are. This is indeed, I've been corrected by Andy on this, it's actually our 29th of our weekly Pimento networking events. As ever, we'll record it for those people that can't make today's call. We will be opening up to questions today. I'm very keen that we get some feedback from everyone on the call today. So we're going to try and keep the kind of formal side of it and the chit chat to about 40 minutes and then hopefully get 15 minutes at the end. Quick update on where we are with COVID. Some of you will have seen overnight that the new restrictions are coming into force today across the UK, mainly centred around lowest tier, medium. We've got this now 3-tier restrictions. Millions of people in the north and obviously in the Midlands are facing extra curbs on household mixing. Liverpool region is the only area to be under the toughest rules, where pubs and bars are now no longer able to serve food. And there's also the possibility that Greater Manchester, Lancashire and some of the other areas will be joining Liverpool. Great to see positive reaction from the Liverpudlians last night, who went out and had a big rave and thought they'd actually basically have a final ta-da before they got forced back into their homes. Probably the reason why they happened to do it in the first place. So you know, the reality is over the next few weeks we are going to see tougher controls across the UK. There is always the possibility of this sort of 2-week to 3-week circuit breaker that Sir Keir Starmer has been talking about. Although, as you know, Boris and co are very keen not to put in place any further blanket restrictions across the UK. What today is about is not so much, I mean, it's a kind of byproduct of COVID. It's talking about really our most important agency asset. I know it's a cliche, but it's the truth, which is our people. We're going to join today by Ruth, Kieran, who's the CEO of Cirkle and co-chair of people at the Alliance of Independent Agencies, aka the Alliance. We also have with us Heidi Wadsworth, who's HR and training consultant from Reality HR. And the subject matter is something that will be all too familiar with all of us, I think, over the years. It's unlikely that anyone will have a career in communications, marketing, advertising, PR, whatever, without feeling the pain at some point of being laid off and being made redundant. If you're fortunate enough for this never to have happened to you, you've obviously done very well, or you are a very special person, or you're running your own business, which may be one of the reasons, of course, why you actually set up your own business. But today we really want to sort of have a look at how we can help people in perhaps their greatest hour of need. As we come to the end of the furlough period, I know I've been saying for a number of weeks now, we need to basically recognise that a lot of people are unfortunately going to be let go. Many agencies will have been preparing for this for a number of weeks, months even, for this eventuality. So it could just be that people basically are on a furlough period of what's the word I'm looking for? Their notice. But either way, either beginning of November through to the Christmas period, or indeed well into next year, it's likely that we will see a significant number of people let go in the industry. And we're very keen to try and find ways in which we can collectively collaborate and help people back into work. So we're going to be talking about a new concept today called What Next? But more generally, I really want to be able to pick Ruth's brains. Cirkle have an inevitable reputation in both corporate reputational management and PR and public affairs and third sector communications. Ruth has been the MD there since 2018. She's spent her formative years at McCann Erickson in Sydney, well travelled is Ruth. And she's also basically spent time in APAC running campaigns for Microsoft, IBM, and in Hong Kong before she returned home to the UK. Her previous roles include managing partner at the integrated agency Kindred, deputy managing director at consumer brand agency Lexus, where we first met, and head of comms for sports charity, the Women's Sport and Fitness Foundation. She's worked across pretty much every category you can think of within PR and comms. Cirkle is an award-winning consumer and B2B agency. They will have a great range of blue chip brands, primarily in the food and drinks category. They also work with retailers, FMCG. They're an agency that were founded back in 1994. They're 100% independent and proud of their independence. But now, like an emerging number of agencies, they are owned by their employees. So all their employees have a stake in the action, if you like, and that's helped them, I guess, to build and create a very, very strong values-led organisation, very, very strong culture, and they've been nominated for lots of awards over the years for their culture, including securing top 20 places to work in. They also picked up the Business Culture Awards for Best Business Culture for business for companies under 250 people. They continue to be able to actually both attract and retain talent on that basis. Heidi is a master trainer. She has been involved in, I think, HR for most of her life, both in the training and the development of talent and the commercial aspects of HR. She works as a consultant at Reality HR, who have been partnering with Pimento now for coming up for 12 months, I think. She has been at the heart of basically putting together our concept, What Next Day, and I'm going to allow her to kind of explain what that's all about later on. But let's get started. I mean, let's make sure we've got everybody in from the waiting room. I often leave people out in the cold. And we've got Owen, Malcolm. Let them come in. So up to 33 of us. So as we go through this, if you've got any questions, please do use the chat box at the bottom of your screen to pose some questions, and I'll open it up to all of us, and then we'll go around the room and share your ideas as we go through it. So I'm going to start with a question I made for both Ruth and Heidi. I mean, I don't know to what extent you sort of share my thoughts around this and whether there's any evidence from it from the conversations that you've had with your clients. Now, Heidi, in your case, obviously communications is part of what you do, but you also work with lots of small businesses around the UK. What's your feeling? We're coming to the end of furlough at the end of this month. I've dubbed Sunday the 1st of November as Bloody Sunday, but it may not be as bad as that. What are you hearing from your colleagues in the industry? First of all, Ruth.
I think I would imagine, and we're certainly in this position where a lot of decisions have already been made and were made sort of in the middle of the year. I think, you know, we all know that we've got to live with what's happening and the repercussions that are coming through. So I don't think it will be, unlike the hospitality sector and sectors where there is a cut-off. I think a lot of agencies have already downsized or restructured ahead of that point. So I don't think there's going to be a bloody Sunday. I think that those people that are aware are probably already aware if you're an agency that's been planning to get through to the end of the year. But obviously next year we've got to all be cautious. We're all probably planning our 2021 budgets and what they will look like. So I think most people will have made those decisions middle of the year.
Okay. Well, what about yourself, Heidi? What are you hearing from outside of the comms industry?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, Stephen. We've got clients across a variety of industries, including manufacturing, all sorts of retail, hospitality, leisure, all sorts of different industries. And as Ruth says, lots of people have made their decisions already or recognised quite early on in lockdown that they might have to cut their overheads, and that unfortunately for a lot of people meant including their people costs. So we have been advising a number of clients on how to make redundancies in the most legislatively correct way, but also in the most empathetic way as possible. And as you said, Stephen, rightly so, lots of people used the furlough period to actually run out their notice. So people were maybe made redundant or given their notice of redundancy back in August, but were kept on right until the 31st of October so that they could get the maximum benefit from the furlough scheme as individuals and, of course, the company claiming back those funds. We are aware of lots of people who were really hoping that the furlough scheme was going to be extended in a meaningful way. And until we had the final announcement, when was it? I've lost track of the weeks. 2 weeks ago, we found out about the new version of the job support scheme. And actually, it didn't fill the gap that a lot of people were hoping. It doesn't support in the same way as the furlough scheme did. So while I agree, I don't think the bloody Sunday is going to be quite as bad as you were potentially thinking, Stephen. I think, as Ruth says, these cuts are going to continue right into next year. We are certainly advising a lot of clients still now about how to make redundancies. On the flip side, a bit more positive note, we are working with lots of clients who have done well in this last sort of period. So lots of industries have come through this quite nicely in a very robust way, and certain companies even within badly affected industries are doing well. So we do have quite a lot of recruitment going on. So there is definitely a case. There are jobs out there, and I really don't want to sound like wishy, but if people are looking to change industry or to retrain or are willing to see how their skills can transfer, there are jobs out there.
Yeah, well, actually, there's interesting. Many of you will have seen the advertising campaign that was launched by the government this week, and I was jesting with Andy Clark yesterday and the members of the Pimento team that I'm sure there's lots of prima ballerinas out there very happy to go into working in cyber security. It seems ridiculous to me. I totally understand the idea of actually transferable skills, but we have to be realistic, don't we, as to what we can expect people to do. And we are also, I guess, witnessing maybe a gear change in industry and in employment more generally, because if we think about obviously the development of AI, we think about the demise of certain industries, it could well be that actually we are coming out of COVID with a very different employment world, a world that I guess will be driven by many more people being self-employed, many more people basically acting as freelancers, particularly obviously in the communications area. How is the situation with COVID more generally impacting on agency culture, and what do you see in terms of how you manage disparate resources? How are you coping with that, Ruth?
Well, I mean, I think going back to the point about people retraining and reskilling, a lot of the people that will be made redundant haven't been made redundant through any fault of their own or lack of talent, and I think we don't want to lose those people out of the industry completely. So on your point about retraining, I think it's important to note this is we will have to live with COVID for a while, but this is not. We don't want to encourage an exodus of the industry, people out of the industry to retrain, because actually ultimately we want to retain talent in the industry. In terms of culture and maintaining culture in this current climate, I'm sure that everyone agrees that it's been a bit of a bumpy ride, and the first 6 months we I think we had a really positive. It was tough, but everyone sort of banded together. I think what's difficult is this sort of the long drawn out nature and keeping the momentum and the kind of culture within the team going, because the energy levels, I think, people are tired, and that goes across the UK as well as within our agency and our clients as well. Everyone is quite exhausted by the continued COVID situation.
Just add to that, sorry, Stephen, I was just going to add on that. I think I absolutely agree with you, Ruth. In the beginning, it was all hands on deck and we all pulled together as a business or with your family and friends. And there were some great examples of neighbourhoods coming together, wasn't there? Villages shopping for the elderly. But I think it's the relentlessness now of knowing how long this has been going on and how long we can actually see this to continue. And that is where I think people are now becoming very, very tired. So I don't know if anyone saw then a puppy's head appear on the screen. So apologies that I'm being utterly distracted by a 9-week-old puppy who is ever so cute to look at, but does not like to be left on his own without attention. And so I really apologise if I keep checking what he's up to. I'm really sorry. He's eating my slippers. So it's the relentlessness, and everybody is impacted. And we're seeing more and more, we're talking to Michelle Morgan about mental health, the ongoing issues that people are facing, which is one of the reasons I've got a dog, because apparently it's good for your mental health to have a pet. Stroking a dog's a good calming activity, but I think they weren't talking about 9-week-old cockapoos who are not calming or so helpful at the moment. But yes, so sorry, the relentlessness of the tiredness and how long this is going to go, and the way the companies and agencies need to pull together and keep that strength of culture, I think will be a strong factor in who comes out well at the end of this and who struggles, both in terms of agency support, agency success, but also individuals. Who comes through this strongest is those that can pull together. And it's all sort of terrible cliches, but teams that pull together are stronger and that support each other. And I think as agency leaders, it's offering that support and access to support, if signposting, if you're not qualified or don't feel confident to do it yourself.
number of people I've spoken to have taken on talent during COVID, and managing, you know, new starts into environments where there isn't an environment is particularly challenging. I think a number of people interpreted the government advice a few weeks ago, if you can work from home, you know, work from home, to extremes. So some of the agencies that had opened up their offices and were moving back into environments whereby they could actually share space. We've spoken before on this show that a number of agency leaders have actually changed the working environment and created almost members clubs, so people can just drop in, have a chat, have a coffee, and so on, just to maintain the social aspect of their work. As you rightly say, I mean, it's getting tiring, isn't it? We're moving into the winter, things are, you know, the nights are drawing in. In general, you know, things are not particularly positive at the moment. So retaining that positivity and making sure that people realise that, you know, they're part of a community, part of a team, is even more challenging than it ever was. I mean, Ruth, do you have any kind of sort of top tips really for how you do that?
Well, we as a lot of agencies started to sort of move back into getting our team back into the office, and I think that was, everyone was very excited about that. And obviously, we have a relationship with Happiness Index, and we plot our team's sort of happiness across on a week by week basis. And actually, what's been fascinating about the results of that shows that our team are very, very affected by government communications and what's happening externally. So the week that Chris Whitty and Boris Johnson sort of drip fed the kind of the going back into lockdown, our team were definitely affected by that. And so, you know, we made the decision to keep the office open. And people are continuing to come in there in much smaller numbers. So, you know, 3 or 4 people at a time. You know, we've got capacity for 40 people in the office, and we would get about sort of 15 or so when over the summer when we were allowed to go back in. But we're also making sure that we're trying to encourage people to sort of buddy up with particularly junior team members, because we had a lot of people that started with us at the beginning of lockdown. You know, younger people who are learning and need support, and it's very, very difficult for them to learn by osmosis, to listen to other, you know, more senior people, how they do their jobs, ask lots of questions. So we're trying to encourage people to buddy up with other team members so that they can learn from them, because it is really difficult. I mean, you know, if you're more senior in your career and you're used to working from home a bit more, and you've got a bit more experience, it's easier, I would say. But if you're, you know, a 20-something grad and this is your first job, it is really important to be able to ask those questions and not feel like you're having to ring someone or Zoom with them every 5 minutes. So we're trying to encourage that in a safe way, obviously with guidelines and distancing, etc. But and that I think has helped, and also just getting people out of their homes, because as you say, we're getting into winter. It's important from mental health perspective to kind of, within reason, have a bit of social contact.
And yourself, Heidi, what about your team?
Exactly the same as Ruth. We've been working from home since a few weeks before lockdown, actually, because we saw the writing was on the wall and wanted to get ourselves set up and remotely. But we've opened the office for a drop-in, really, and exactly as you said, Stephen, a drop-in access centre where if you just need to get away from your four walls, there's a couple of people around to just have some human contact with someone that isn't your family, because as much as we all love our families, for some of us being cooped up with them for the last 6.5 months hasn't been an easy ride. So exactly the same, and we're advising clients exactly the same. Get your risk assessments done, get them published, consult with your staff, and keep the offices open where you can in a safe, COVID secure way.
Okay, well, that's all good tips, and I think it's all good best practice. I guess, you know, creativity and what we do with people is going to come to the fore over the next 6 months in order we can continue that work. This week, as you know, we're celebrating the Festival of Happiness in association with the Alliance, and there's a great programme of events and activities really designed around mental health. We're going to come back to mental health when we talk a little bit about the project that we've been working on in a moment. But before we go on to that, Heidi, I mean, I was on a call yesterday with Ruth, with the Alliance, and we were talking a little bit about the recruitment challenges in 2021 and how what a recruitment is going to have to change and evolve to accommodate the ongoing situation that is COVID. Do you have any thoughts around that?
The immediate change has been around remote interviews, so video interviewing rather than getting people in face to face. And actually, that's been a real benefit for a lot of people to be able to schedule interviews at a time that's easier for the candidate and easier for you, particularly as people are working from home. People haven't had to take an afternoon off to come for an interview. They haven't had to tell their employer that current employer that they're going for an interview. So there has been a speeding up of the process in a lot of cases, where it's much quicker to schedule an hour's Zoom call over lunch than it is to get someone to take an hour out or an afternoon off to come and travel. So the practicalities of recruiting in a lot of ways have become easier. That's not to say everyone's enjoying the experience of interviewing over video, but I think as we're all getting more and more used to being on video calls, that actually this is something that's not going to go away. And of course, then in the longer term, for someone taking on a new job, working remotely means you don't just have to recruit talent that lives close to your office. We're seeing more and more employers now recruiting, I was about to say UK-wide, but actually even internationally. So there are lots more opportunities now for people who can work remotely, who you may not have considered before because you would have had to pay out for a big relocation package. So we've seen lots more flexibility in that people can apply for a job anywhere and you can employ the right person for your company no matter where they live. So a couple of really positives have come out of this, and I hope some of those positives stay with us as we come out the other side of this and things go back to some sort of new normal. Actually, there are some benefits that we're seeing that make life a lot easier for both candidates and for employing managers.
Ruth, you made a number of good points. Thank you very much, Heidi. But Ruth, you made a couple of good points about recruitment yesterday on that call. And one of them was your concern around being able to actually persuade people to leave their current jobs. Did you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're aware that there's because of redundancies, there's going to be a candidate-rich market in terms of people looking for work, and it's really important that we access those when we're looking for new talent. But also, if you're looking for a specific role, trying to tempt that person out of a role where they're feeling secure, I think that most people would be very nervous. I'm not sure, I mean, Heidi might have a view about this, but if they feel secure and their businesses that they're currently in is secure, taking the risk to leave a job in this current environment is a very brave decision. And I'm sure we've all got stories of people who unfortunately had changed jobs just before COVID hit and were the last in first out. And I think it's really, really important to make sure that how do we, and particularly as smaller independent businesses, encourage people to come to our businesses and reassure them that it's a safe thing for them to do, because I think going into 2021, it's finding good talent, and we will still be growing and we'll still be recruiting for certain roles. So look at finding those people and persuading them out of safe or secure jobs, whether they're happy or not, or they're being they're developing in their careers. That's going to be a real challenge. And so I suppose making sure that your employer brand and communicating about what you can offer, particularly as an independent agency, will be really important. But it is going to be a really interesting recruitment market, I think. I mean, that goes back to, obviously we know there's a lot of discussion around diversity and inclusion, finding more diverse talent, and perhaps that's a good opportunity for us to be a bit more creative about what we look for in talent. And actually, if we to maybe take a step back and rip up the rule book of what we've always done, because I think a lot of what's happened recently has made us all look at how we run our businesses, how we do things, and whether we can do things more innovatively and more creatively, more flexibly, looking at our costs. There's been a lot of introspection, I think, over the last 6 months, let's say.
I agree on that, definitely. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, now it was a bit of a segue, really, because we've touched on three essential points, which is one, things aren't going to be the same. We're having to look at obviously diversity, inclusion, and in a proactive way, rather than pay lip service to it. And we should probably come back and talk about that if we have time later. We are concerned about obviously the fact that there are a number of people that are going to be let go, albeit those people probably are fully aware of that already. But I think it'd be quite interesting now, Heidi, for you to share some of the ideas and work you've been doing in this space to be able to help those people that are about to be let go. So I'd like to get people's feedback on this particular proposal, because I think it's something that we can promote more widely across the industry if there is interest on this call.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. So I'll talk us through really a couple of weeks worth of work. So we're a collective, a group of people, and thank you to those that are on the call today. So if we get questions about any of these, any of the products we're talking about, I'm going to call on the people who are on the call to answer it, because you don't want to hear my voice that whole session. So What Next is a product or a group of products that we've created to support those that are being made redundant. Focus is obviously around people in marketing, comms, agency, community, but we do see that there's application to take this wider into any industry. And of course, even within this community, there will be people doing very different jobs. You'll have finance and HR, people, the support services. So any industry, really, any people involved, we think we've got a fantastic group of people together to offer a great product. So I'll talk you through what that looks like. And then, as Stephen says, we're really keen to hear feedback and thoughts, whether there's use for this, whether you've got builds for us to take this forward. So What Next is an outplacement support product. It is for agencies who are making people redundant to purchase a choice of packages at a very, very reasonable cost. We've been really keen to make this affordable because, again, we understand that if you're making that tough decision to let people go, it's because you haven't got bags of cash floating around. So we wanted to make sure this was as affordable, get my teeth in, as affordable as possible, but actually is a really good offering for each individual who is being let go to help them get on the road to a new job as quickly as possible. So the packages are bronze, silver, gold. We were really creative on the naming there, but it says what we want it to say. So the team are myself, and Stephen's done me a great introduction this morning. Thank you for having me on, Stephen, to talk this through. Mandy's on with us today. Mandy's a talent and development specialist and qualified coach. And Mandy's going to be bringing the career coaching aspects to our What Next programme. Lots of you will know Michelle Morgan. She's been on lots of these calls and has spoken widely to us all about our mental health, building resilience, dealing with stress. So Michelle's also going to be delivering one of our sessions for us, because this is going to be a really important topic for all those who are going through the process of being made redundant. Russell, Nick and Jeff, all three on the call, I think, this morning. So Russell is our recruitment specialist coming on here. We're bringing all the ideas and background knowledge of how people can go out and find the right role, find the roles to apply for, use your network, use their LinkedIn networks, etc. So Russell's going to deliver that session for us. You all know Nick. Nick's a regular on these calls. Nick has going to run a session for us around going freelance. And then if we take this out to the wider industry, to other industries, we'll be looking at self-employment in more general terms as well. And Jeff's new to Pimento, so I've invited Jeff to join us because Jeff is a financial advisor who specialises really in helping individuals look after their financial well-being. So well-being isn't just about our mental health or our physical health. Jeff talks fantastically about how people can make decisions about their money, whether that is someone who's very new in their role and has been made redundant with not even a statutory package because they've got less than 2 years service. So how can they deal with that immediate issue? Or actually at the other end of the scale, have people been made redundant, senior people with maybe lots of years of experience and a good package? So how can they best use that money safely, wisely, invest it wisely? So that's who we are. And between us, as I say, we're going to be delivering a number of options. So our bronze package, this is really the entry-level package. This is the most cost-effective way you can provide at least an introduction of support to your staff. So for only £100 per person, they will be invited to a 2-hour webinar that's delivered by myself, Mandy and Russell, and covering really an introduction to all of the areas that are going to be important for them. So as you see on the screen, how do you find a job, where to look, how to touch up your CV, how to write your cover letter, and really how to interview, particularly how to interview over Zoom, as that's new for a lot of us. So it is only an introduction to people. It is only the introductory level, so it's not going to be a full package. If you have got slightly more funds and you want to give a more comprehensive package to your staff, we've created our silver level, which we think is absolutely fantastic value. 7 interactive workshops. So led by, as I said, the 7 of us, the 6 of us, I think I've got my name down for 2. So seven sessions covering really all aspects of outplacement. What is it you need to think about when you are facing redundancy? How can you return that initial shock and trauma into hopefully a positive career move? So how can we help people get back into work or into the right job for them as quickly as possible? There will be dates running through November and December, and then we'll be starting another programme in January, because obviously we recognise this isn't going to finish. We're not, the redundancy, the round of redundancies is not going to stop at Christmas as much as we'd like it to. So at the moment, we've got dates planned for these 7 workshops running between the beginning of November and Christmas. And hopefully we've got the financial awareness one in time for people who are worrying about Christmas. And I saw an interesting article from Martin Lewis. I don't know, Jeff, if that's on your agenda. Martin Lewis this year suggesting don't buy Christmas presents for everyone. So take from that what you will, but for a financial decision not to buy Christmas presents. So 7 workshops throughout November and December, round 2 starting in January. And our gold package is the same 7 workshops plus then a one-to-one, either with Jeff, our personal financial advisor, or with Mandy, our expert career coach. So for £500 per person, we think that is astounding value. Get all of those workshops plus a one-to-one. And of course, if anyone wants further one-to-ones with any of the people involved, any of the experts involved in any of the sessions, then we would all be able to arrange that individually for them. But as agency owners, having to let people go is an awful decision. But if you can help them on their way, then I think Stephen said at the start of the call, not only are you doing the best for them, but you're also doing the best for those left in your business, because they will see that actually, while you had to make a tough call, you really did it in the most empathetic, sympathetic way possible, and offered as much practical support as you really could financially do. So that's a summary of our packages. I think hopefully they're clear. I've explained them clearly enough. We've been around the houses debating what would be good prices, what good ideas, what to cover, but we're very interested in people's feedback. We are ready to go in terms of booking. So if anyone has an immediate interest, it's really simple to book. I'm showing the link on the screen at the moment to a landing page on the Reality HR website, which takes you straight into Eventbrite for each of the packages. And you just sign up there and then. You can pay that immediately. And then your person that's being made redundant, you would just send them the details. They get in touch with us and we send them the joining links. It's really, hopefully, a really simple process. There's nothing complex with terms of invoicing and credits and, you know, how long it's got to be used by. So it is a case of get onto those Eventbrite sites, get it paid for, forward the confirmation email to the individual who needs the support, and we'll take it from there. That's it, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Well, if you could share that presentation and a PDF form with people on this call, that would be really good. And obviously we'll share it more widely than that. The point I was going to make is that the reason we've had to do this is because none of the larger associations have anything currently in their product portfolio or in their help side to be able to actually assist in this space. So the Advertising Association point us in the direction of NABS, which is their charity. The BPIF, Print Federation, point us in the direction of the print charity. So this sort of kind of charitable arm. Unfortunately, the DMA, the Advertising Association, as I say, the PRCA and others have got, you know, elements of this, but what we try to do is pull it all together into one simple go-to-market product. And it is a product. It's not branded Pimento. It's something we want to be adopted by the associations and the alliances and pushed out to their membership. We're promoting it on all of our channels. We'll be putting some money behind it too in terms of advertising, working with Prolific North. We're hoping to get a fair amount of publicity from campaign marketing week. And Nick's going to be helping us with that, and so is Screever. So we really want to get this message out and get as many people as enrolled. And even if people have been let go already by agencies in the last 3 months, now would be a good time to reach out to them and actually say, look, I'm really sorry, how are you getting on? I know how tough it is out there. Here's something to help you. So what I'd like to do now is invite any questions, both of our esteemed panel who will be delivering this, the Nicks, the Russells, this world, the Mandys. We've got also, I believe, looking across who's with us today.
He's on the call as well, Stephen.
He was there. Where's he gone? I can't see him.
He's there.
Okay. But yeah, it'd be great to get some feedback, really, because this is your chance to kind of have a say. And some of you I know aren't, you're individuals, you're not employing vast amounts of people, others of you do. So I just like it from all perspectives, really. So if I could open it up, if anyone wants to raise their hand or ask a question, and that would be really, really good.
There's a question in the chat already, actually, from Patrick to say, this is a great idea. Thanks, Patrick. One question, for people already made redundant, can they fund this themselves? And absolutely, the answer is yes. So as Stephen's just said, if you've already let someone go, then you can go back and as an agency owner, you can go back and fund this for them. Or if individuals are able to, and we've tried to keep that price point low enough that individuals could afford to come and pay for this themselves, then they are very welcome to just join through those Eventbrite links as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone think about other ways in which we could promote this, perhaps? Whether you indeed would be happy to basically push this out to other agencies and other organisations that you're connected with. If we send you a link, whether you're happy to do that as your way of helping people get work. Yeah, thanks, Danny. And is there anything we're missing in the package? Is there any other things that you think we should be considering bolting onto the core packages?
Well, I think that sounds as though we've got this just right. I hope. I hope the deafening silence means it's perfect and it doesn't need any tweaks.
David, any thoughts? Andy, any thoughts?
I'm just going to come in with a thought, actually.
Hi, John.
Particularly 50 high. I think there's a real opportunity here. I think what's missing in the outplacement market at the moment is actually tailored advice. And obviously we've got a membership base here with, specialist agencies. And I think that the coaching content that you're providing through this service could be specially tailored to individuals that have been made redundant from agencies specifically. I mean, I always question, I think, there's an interesting piece here. You've got obviously group coaching versus individual coaching and the impact that can have. But I think if the sessions are tailored to individuals that are going to be coming out of agency, where I believe this is specifically targeted, I think that will be a differentiator from a lot of the more generic outplacement services that that exist today, I think, more broadly in the market.
John, yeah, I mean, that's the intention. Barbara Wren, you're one of the illustrious leaders, works very closely with Ruth, and you're working very closely now on the Alliance and on the people part of the Alliance proposition. We spoke briefly about this yesterday, and I know you've been focusing on objectives and where you want the people agenda to go at the Alliance, particularly focused on obviously training and development. But what's your thoughts around what we're showing you today?
Hi, and apologies, I don't have the camera today. I'm having technical problems again today. I'm awaiting my new laptop, so you just have to look at me as a blank screen as a name. But I am here, I promise. Yeah, no, Stephen, I think it's a really great initiative. I mean, I think, and I think to the last point, I think anything that we can do that's kind of specifically tailored. As you'll know, as Talent Group, we were talking yesterday about possible ways that we could link together for roles that we have that become available, because obviously at the moment, if I know recruitment hasn't been high on most people's agenda, but as it becomes higher on the agenda, or if we have opportunities that are maybe not you know, traditionally full-time roles like they used to be, but something where someone could maybe come and fill a gap for someone that kind of helps them and helps the agency, then I think that's great. And also we talked about anything that could actually keep people who've been displaced feeling like they're still part of our community during that period. So, you know, although they're not at work, so that they actually still feel like they belong to the agency world, and you know that they are having some kind of special care and attention. So no, I think it's a great thing, and certainly, you know, I guess we've been lucky so far in that we've not really had to make any redundancies, but you know, I think it's a great initiative. I've worked with outplacement services before and always found them to be really helpful. I think it also helps the individuals to have someone who isn't part of their agency to talk to, because as an HR manager, you know, obviously that there's so much I can do to help support people who, as they go through those kind of situations. But I do think you are still nevertheless part of the agency and part of the group of people that has had to be party to that decision in the first place. So you aren't necessarily someone they're going to open up to 100%. So I think it's always better that it's someone else who, you know, who does that, whose profession it is to do that. So yeah, no, I think it's a great thing, and certainly something I hope that we can, you know, incorporate somewhere into our groups.
Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate it.
Just to add, the Alliance set up during the lockdown period and still runs a furlough community for people that were put on furlough that wanted to continue to sort of train and be involved. And I think, I mean, it goes back to my point earlier that, you know, a lot of these people that have left agencies or have been furloughed, you know, these are talented individuals we must retain, and we must ensure that we keep in the industry. I don't want them going off to do cyber. You know, I want them to stay in the industry, because we've got an amazing, thriving and certainly independent community, and we need to make sure that this period that we keep that talent in the industry. We continue to help them train and support each other, share, you know, so, you know, share you know, CVs with each other to make sure that we are, you know, if you've got a great person that you can't personally keep within your business, that you within these communities, within the Pimento network or within the Alliance network, that we encourage each other to talk about, because, you know, this has happened to us. This is not, you know, this is something that we have to get through, but these people deserve to stay in this industry. And you know, if we can help them with this scheme, or through the furlough community and the Alliance, you know, and just general collaboration with other agencies, I think it's really important.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the other thing, Ruth, I don't know what our plans are going forward in terms of, obviously we're now coming out of the furlough phase, so we'll have a number of more people who maybe previously were on furlough who are now redundant and technically don't belong to those agencies. Are we still planning to keep things going for them, do you know, or have we not really gone to that?
I mean, that's part of, obviously, so the Alliance, there's various groups, but it's all about making sure that we've got tangible actions, and that is something from the next phase that we need to make sure that from the talent point of view, that we would keep that talent in the industry, not only just in the member agency, but within the industry itself. So what can we pull together and collaborate as a group of you know, agencies, but also as an industry. So certainly that is really important, and I think that goes back to the Alliance and things that Pimento are doing, making sure that we have initiatives that actually make a difference, that we don't just talk, because at the moment talking isn't going to help us. We need to actually do initiatives and activities that really help.
To that point, both Pimento people and Russell's agency, Premier Consultants, are saying to you know, talent out there that if you are made, you know, please first thing do register with both those organisations, make sure they've got your CVs, make sure you're available both for full-time gigs as well as interim opportunities. Nick, do you want to and Russell, do you want to talk a little bit about how you're sort of managing that in terms of encouraging people basically to register and what's available to them?
Yes, indeed. I'm particularly interested in the freelance marketplace. Even before COVID, there was an enormous rise in the number of freelancers, and I think it's pretty safe to assume that pool of talent will be increasing. What I'm interested in, probably as a question to Ruth rather than a statement from me, is do you think that agencies are going to adapt their business model to employ more freelancers as time goes on, given the growing pool of of talent who will be either forced or by choice to go freelance?
I would imagine that with caution, because we have such uncertainty, people will be very nervous about taking on headcount going into next year in particular. You know, I think we're all, I mean, I personally keep thinking 2021 is going to be this sort of utopia, but it really isn't. And I think, you know, we are going to go into 2021. I think there's going to be much more caution about people taking on permanent headcount. So yes, I think probably people will be taking more freelance. So there is an opportunity for those people. And obviously, you know, great talented people, it is a good route into an agency if you start working as a freelance, and that, you know, longer term opportunities. But absolutely, I think that's probably going to be
I think so too. And given that even sort of full-time people are working from home now, there isn't a lot of difference in the management challenges of a remote workforce, whether they're freelance or full-time. So it's certainly something we have noticed that is growing, and certainly something that both Russell and I are going to dedicate a large proportion of our time to that particular market. Russell, do you want to add anything to?
Yeah, I think you know, I've my observations in terms of talking to both individuals and other agency leaders is that you know, clearly to survive, a lot of agencies have had to either cut their staff already, or are again looking at their costs moving forward, simply because there is a lot of uncertainty over client budgets with regards to 2021. But yet they are maintaining their relationships with their clients. They're holding on to them like there's no tomorrow, really. And clearly, what I think is going to, I think what's going to happen is that as the clients begin to emerge from the situation, they will turn to their agencies and they will say, can you do me a campaign on X, or can you provide me with something on Y, whatever it may be. Yeah, I was talking to an agency leader yesterday, and you know, what she said was that, yeah, they've cut back. And you know, clearly, when things do start to pick up, they won't have the resource. So the freelance model will be preferable to potentially keep people off keep people off their payroll. But equally, she made a very good point, which was that people, i.e. the account handlers, people working in agencies, and indeed the client side as well, the last 6 months have really made a lot of people think about the work-life balance, their lifestyle, and do they really need to be earning X, Y, and Z, A, B, C, and you know, do they really need to be working sort of 9 to 5 days a week? And I've had conversations with potential candidates, etc., who effectively have endorsed that view, in sense thinking, well, actually, you know, my hobby is yoga, whatever it may be. I want to devote more time to that, but I still need an income to, you know, pay my rent, pay my bills, whatever. So again, I think that I very much detect a shift in people's attitudes, both in terms of the employer and the employee as well. You know, I mean, it's a sort of it's based on sort of conversations, and again, I'm interested to learn from, you know, other people as to, you know, that sentiment that I've heard, whether that's been expressed to other people, and whether that's something that is happening across the whole industry.
Andy's put a really great comment in the chat, and I think you're right, Andy, that the whole freelance model, while it makes an absolute sense from the agency's perspective, it does leave quite often individuals with no protection. And we know there were a number of individuals, self-employed people, for example, that fell through the cracks of the furlough and the self-employed schemes. And it is a risk for individuals who have been put out into the, you know, made redundant from their roles. So I don't think it's necessarily the only answer. I can see it is an answer in lots of instances, but I think we do need to be aware of it. And absolutely, it is a conundrum that if we leave people freelancing and shit hits the fan again, what happens to them then? So there is a kind of middle ground that we're seeing with some companies where they're taking people on fixed term contracts. So they are PAYE, they are employees, but they're employed for the term of the project. So while the client's paying, you've got their salary. But when the client stops or that project ends, then you let that person go. And it's not any better in terms of putting people back out on the streets again. But it does mean that while they are working for you, they're employed, and therefore should we have a recurrence of the furlough scheme, they would be covered, probably depending on the dates. I mean, it's all a bit pie in the sky because we don't really know what's going to happen in 2021. As Ruth said, it's not going to be brilliant, but let's just hope it's been better than 2020's been. But if we do have to go back to the furlough, having people on a fixed term contract is potentially a middle ground, maybe.
Also, Heidi, it says something about IR35 as well, because obviously that got shifted, but again, that's going to have an impact.
Before we go on to IR35, one thing I just want to comment on, Heidi, before we go on to that, is that part of the problem has been the freelance community haven't necessarily done themselves any favours in the way in which they've actually gone about setting themselves up. And one of the things I know Nick has been doing and is advising people who are new to freelance is that you set yourself up as a limited company. Don't not do that. It's important you actually have that limited liability. But equally too, agencies are only going to employ people because of IR35 if they've actually got a limited company, and they also need to have insurance in place too. So make sure you've got some PI cover in place. So
and they have to have more than one client.
They also have one client, but
yeah.
And then the other really important point too is there is insurance that you can take out there for the eventuality of actually being made unemployed. Even as freelancers, you can get cover. So we always encourage people to get some sort of cover in that space, so they actually do have a bit of a safety net. So treat yourself as a corporation, not as an individual. Set yourself up properly, and the cost of doing it is nothing. It's 28 quid to register a company and become a limited company. Yes, you've got to do an annual return. That's going to cost you probably something like £500-600 a year, but pretty straightforward for a business that's turning over less than 100 grand. You don't have to basically register for VAT unless you're doing 85, 90 grand's worth of turnover a year, etc., etc. So do it properly. Sorry, Ruth, back to your point on IR35. My understanding is it's been kicked into long grass for at least 12 months.
I think it actually kicks off in April 2021.
Yeah.
It was deferred till April 2021. I've been looking at various articles. I monitor it every day, and I get daily alerts now on IR35. I suspect what's going to happen is that it may well get deferred again for another 12 months, simply because of the unemployment, the likely rate of unemployment, and the fact that there will be quite a lot of freelancers. But I think the government is uncomfortable about not doing it, simply because they feel that they're missing out on several £1 billion worth of tax revenue, basically. So yeah, it's still planned to go ahead on April 2021, but as I say, a lot reading Construction News and all these other magazines where I think a lot of people would be impacted by IR35. There seems to be sort of pressure growing on the Chancellor to again defer it for another year.
I'd like to bring Mandy and Jeff into this conversation, because the other two people have been sort of rounding out this proposition. Mandy comes from the world of HR, but also training and development, and particularly having worked in the hospitality sector. And I know it's very common for IXG to have proper outplacement services, but they were significantly more expensive than what we're talking about here. What's your experience in that? And then Jeff, I want to come back to you before we round up today's call and talk about the sorts of advice you're going to be able to give people about managing their finances through this period.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Certainly with IHG, they did kind of 4 levels of package. They had and it was done by length of duration. So 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, or 12 months. So if you were sort of SVP level, you had a 12-month ongoing support contract. Lots of workshops, actually very similar content to the sort of thing we're doing, although I think the kind of mental health resilience wasn't there. Similar offer to Jeff's with the finance proposition, and absolutely covering some of the areas Nick's going to touch on about if you're looking to go independent, freelance, set up your own business, how to go about that, and working with a career coach. But the price points were, in my day, 900 for the 1 month support, 1800 for 3. I think it was 4,000 for the 6 month support, and the top level was 7,000. So it's a very different proposition. Obviously, you know, big corporates could find those kind of finances to do it. And certainly speaking to a colleague yesterday who's just been made redundant from Intercontinental, they've changed provider. But he's kind of got a 6 month outplacement package. What we're looking to do, I think, is short circuit that and get people thinking positively about this opportunity, and taking opportunity to, you know, hurry slowly, if you like, in terms of thinking about what sort of options might be available to them.
Jeff, let me just come to you, if I may, before we finish today. The sorts of advice you normally give people is about high net worth individuals, how to invest their money in St James's Place, and how to get to retirement and have a nice pension. In this case, obviously, we're talking to people who the last thing on their minds will be investing in pensions at this stage.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't disagree. And apologies, whereas Heidi's got a dog, I've just got plumbers that have decided to drill through the floor because they've got a problem they're trying to fix. So this can go exceptionally well. But yeah, what I do is I do a lot of financial education in companies, because I'm a massive believer that there is an issue with the lack of education in the school system for people that are coming through. And you can see that by, you know, what you're probably going to find is the people that are lower earners in your workforce, they're living within their means, but oftentimes it's the higher earners that have actually extended themselves so far that as soon as they find out they're out of work, they don't know what to do with their money. And there's this view of a lot of times people haven't really saved for a rainy day. They haven't had their money in the right buckets. So your emergency cash, your medium-term savings, your longer-term things like pensions. So the way I do my financial education workplace is, let's talk for a typical employer, is we focus very much on first the relationship with money. And we help people understand sort of what a good relationship with money is, what you should be thinking about, how do you get your finances more in control. And that works exceptionally well for the outplacement, because what we're trying to do then is say, you know, you might have had a good redundancy package, whatever that may be. Don't go and invest in a pension today. Wait until you get another job. Actually really come back and entrench yourself on where is your money going? What is the relationship you want to have with that money? How do you make sure you've got yourself in a good financial position? That may mean you might be out of work for a period of time. And if they're still in employment, or they've got that sort of period where, let's say, they've got a good notice, it's saying, well, actually really focus in on how you can step back some of those unnecessary expenses and revalue what's important to get yourself in a good financial position. Now, there's no question mark that some people are going to have more complicated financial questions on the back of it, where they're just, you know, they're not going to be comfortable raising in a group. They've got some personal financial issues they want to talk about. I always try and then leave it after that. If somebody wants to have that one-to-one discussion after a quick 30 minutes, we can do a Zoom call and we can help kind of deal with some of that. So often it's something that's a really quick and simple answer we can give, which is thinking market agencies, thinking about young workforces. Often when I do financial education there, somebody wants to say, I'm trying to build up a deposit for a house. What do I do? And I can just give them some really quick tips. Say, you can service this yourself. Here's what you need to do. Here's how you need to save a bit better. So the goal is to take people on the start of a journey on things they can manage themselves. And if they feel completely out with their control of how do they deal with some really pertinent issues, they can have a quick call after. And here go the plumbers. So yeah, it's just trying to help people through that journey. It's not about saying you need a pension, you need these sorts of things. How do you just make sure you've got yourself in a good financial position, or best you can be, to whether it might be a short, medium, long term that you're going to be changing your financial position. I also do a lot as well with contractors on IR35, so I got very interested in that conversation because it's a hugely hot topic debate, and I could talk about that one for hours as well.
Well, I mean, we
Stephen,
should come back.
Before we wrap up, could I just make a point as well? Just
Please.
Before we wrap up on this, like I would encourage freelancers, and if anybody's having to get rid of staff, to think beyond our shores. Really, like we lived in a globalized world before COVID. It's even more so now. There are a number of freelance boards. There's some great ones in the UK. Some have just launched ones called Traction.ai, and it uses AI to match briefs with freelancers and you get feedback on them. There must be global equivalents. There's got to be stuff in the US, in Western Europe, even in Australia. And if freelancers can get their messages right, there's a certain attraction to having a brief submitted in Australia and having it back in your inbox when you wake up the next morning. So I would encourage freelancers to try and think a bit broader than our own shores and their normal means of acquiring business.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point there, Michael. And hold that thought, because we'll have something to share with you in a few weeks' time to that end, actually, working on some ideas around that. Listen, I really want to thank Ruth for giving us her time today. I'd also like to obviously thank Heidi and all the team who have been behind this initiative. It is hopefully something we can take to the other associations. It will live and die our ability to be able to get engagement by agency owners who ultimately should be providing this as a service to their people. As somebody made the point earlier on, it's not unique to the agency and marketing community. It's something that actually can be tailored for other sectors, and I'm sure Heidi will be doing that. And equally too, it might be something you want to basically get involved in. You're all managers, you've all run businesses, you can all help. The people who've actually elected to put their time and to run some of these sessions and to contribute have done it because they want to do it. If you would like to get involved, then we would welcome other people, particularly in the mental health area. We've got good trainers and people in that space. We've got people who run agency groups, people who manage agencies. You've all got experience, and if you would like to give something back and you'd like to get involved, then please get in contact with Heidi. We'll send out a copy of today's presentation. There will be the video available as normal. We will be promoting it across all our channels over the next few weeks. And if you hear of anyone too that's been made redundant, then please point them in the direction of Russell and to Nick. We all want to keep people in the industry, as Ruth said. We don't want them retraining as ballerinas, as nice as that would be, or cybersecurity experts. We're an industry that's a world leader. People from around the world look to the UK for the quality of our communications and marketing. We need to maintain that, and it's important, therefore, that we attract and retain the best talent. So thanks once again. Really good session, very intriguing. Next week we will be talking about procurement and managing pitches in the half-light, as I've called it. We'll have Tina Fegan, the formidable Tina Fegan, on the call, talking about what clients want at the moment, how procurement's changing during COVID. We'll have Michael Mazinski, who launched a very exciting advertising campaign promoting his own agency, London, one of the only agencies to actually use its own medium to promote its own services. He'll be joining us. We'll have Adam from Grey Matters, and our very own Paddy, who's on today's call, all talking about actually how can we improve our hit rate, how can we improve our business performance, what do you have to do differently in order to attract and retain clients during this period. So once again, great session, and speak to you all very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.